should be first in line. Wouldn't you know they are way behind? Just because of the bottom line, these kinds of people exist. So let them drive it till kingdom come. Now we are moving as one. A call to action to one and all. We got to make Monsanto fall. We got to make Monsanto fall. We got to make Monsanto fall.
So without further waiting, I would welcome Dr. Vandana Shiva to the stage.
Thank you so much. My PhD was a tough PhD, very tough PhD. I mean, I'd get up certain mornings and say, my God, all my last 6 months of work has come to zero. Quantum theory is still puzzling, and I think 100 years from now we'll still be puzzling about it. But I can tell you it's simple compared to the puzzle of what has happened to agriculture in our food. The first puzzle, we spent so much money on chemicals, machinery, inputs, and we get cheap food. First puzzle. High cost production, cheap food. What happened in the middle? Your tax money and all the subsidies. Monsanto's had to spend 7 million, DuPont 5, BASF 2, Bayer 2, Dow 2, Syngenta 2, and then Pepsi and Coke come along to remind us that they're part of the poisoned food community. Some people forget. I was woken up to what Coca-Cola does 2002, when a group of women called me down to Plachimada, little village in Kerala. And they'd been protesting Coca-Cola for a year. This little village in Kerala, on Earth Day, called me, and I said, okay, I'll go to find out what do the Kerala villagers have against Coca-Cola. For me, the big problem with Coca-Cola is its health issues. I mean, we've managed to get an entire world addicted to a brown drink that doesn't do you any good. And the reason they're against Proposition 37 is because now all their sugar is high fructose corn syrup. That's coming from GM corn. They'd have to label all their Coke. But that visit is what woke me up to the soft drink industry. And since the very basis of industrial chemical agriculture is based on a lie, the lie that without their use we will have no food, without chemical fertilizers there's no fertility, without chemical pesticides you don't control pests, therefore you need a war against pests. There's been a century of lying around the poisoning of our food. And the most important aspect of this kind of pollution is that you don't see it till way after. Rachel Carson, 50 years ago, it's 50 years since she wrote Silent Spring, was the first to really wake us up to the invisible harm of chemicals. The cancers around us, the allergies around us, killing of life forms at all levels, the disappearance of 75% of the bees on this planet, the disappearance of microorganisms that we didn't even start to know exist in the soil and are the real source of fertility. All of that is the second generation of pollution, the chemical pollution. Then suddenly they mutated into what they call the life sciences industry, when they are the death sciences industry. They're the death sciences industry because the only science, these corporations that are saying no to Proposition 37, the only science they have is how to kill. But they forget that nature is intelligent, nature evolves, species evolve, and before you know it, you've got resistant pests. There are 1,200 times more pests today since we started spraying pesticides. So in fact, it's not a system of controlling pests, it's a system of creating new pests and creating super pests. We were offered genetic engineering and GMOs as a solution to chemical use. And of course, on the grounds that there would now be more food, this would be a solution to hunger. You just have to see the ads and the claims. I'm in fact fascinated that in Proposition 37 they haven't yet said that you're going to make the third world starve. Because that's what they told the Europeans when the Europeans got labeling. That labeling in Europe, the right to know what you're eating in Europe, was suddenly, through action at a distance, going to cause hunger somewhere else. If you look at it, who are the hungry people today? Those who work hardest. Sadly, half of the hungry are those who produce food. Of the billion globally, 500 million are farmers. So hunger in the past was always localized in space and in time. It didn't go on, and it wasn't everywhere. Today's hunger is everywhere, it's global, including in this very rich country. First, the synthetic chemicals were created for warfare, to kill people. And when the wars ended, the industry that had got addicted to profits could not give up. And we have sayings in the peace movement, swords into plowshares. They took war chemicals and turned them into agrochemicals. In the initial stages, they managed to push about 4 crops: corn, rice, wheat, potato, because that's where they could do the breeding for chemicals. At that point, we were all told, rice and wheat, that's all you need. You don't need your dal, you don't need your oilseed. And today, India, which has been the victim of the Green Revolution, imports dal, imports oilseeds. And suddenly we see in the newspapers, go and buy a cheap dal from the ration shops, which are these low-cost shops for the poor. So can you imagine, we're getting, there's no sugar, it's high fructose corn syrup, which is not sugar. It is such an artificial molecule that is going straight to the liver and harming it. And children are now getting cirrhosis of the liver, not because they're alcoholics, but they're living on a diet of foods laced with high fructose corn syrup. So we get fake dal, fake sugar, fake this, fake that. But you can't cheat the body. We are part of the food chain and the food web. We're not above it. And therefore, the more we poison the rest of the food web, the more we poison ourselves. So the Monsantos of the world have pushed GMOs on ground that farmers will do better, there'll be more food. What happened to Indian farmers after they brought the GMO cotton? Farmers got into debt. Prices of seed jumped 8,000%. Seed, a renewable resource, had to be bought every year. It was vulnerable to pests, 13 times more pesticide use. It needed irrigation. So either you had irrigation, which meant more debt, or you didn't have irrigation, which meant more crop failure. Either way, the farmer's crisis of the debt trap was so big that within the last 15 years, since Monsanto entered India and started taking over our cotton seed supply, we have lost 270,000 farmers to suicide. People don't want your GMO. You're giving toxic food, but you insist that you have to be force-fed. You never agreed to this contract. Then you say, at least let me have the choice to say no to Monsanto with a label. At that point, they turn around and pour their millions to say you can't have that choice. This is food fascism.
And Everybody say no.